Hello again, folks. Welcome back to the channel. Today's the day for the results of the BodySig test, which I'll be going in here momentarily. First off, just some announcements, some comments before we get into the results. First off, I wanted to thank everyone who commented on the last video. Man, you guys really delivered. I didn't ask for any comments or suggestions, but man, my audience is apparently very sharp. You're right with me. You're following what's going on, and just there was a whole array of really great comments. So I just wanted to thank everybody. Definitely, many of them gave me ideas and things to think about, which I will be incorporating going forward. So thanks for the participation, folks. I really enjoy that. Yeah, I saw a lot of enthusiasm for this results video. Like, people, I can't wait, and I just really hope I didn't oversell this. I hope I can deliver. I mean, this is not anything earth-shaking today or groundbreaking, but I find it interesting. So anyway, I hope I didn't oversell it. In addition to talking about the results and sharing the results, going through this and thinking about things along the way, I've kind of got a lot of stuff I'm thinking about these days, and I just want to put a lot of that on the table today. It's sort of related to this of this N=1 experiment. Well, it's all related, but it's anyway. I'm going to add a lot of comments. Some of it may be a little stream of consciousness type thing, but I'm just going to throw it all out there and see what resonates with people. One thing I want to clarify up front, I think I said in the last video that it was 5 weeks. It's actually 6 weeks. I said 5 weeks because originally I was thinking about showing you some results after 5 weeks last week, but then I decided to postpone it another week. So it's actually 6 weeks, 42 days. And yeah, I should also have said, if you haven't seen my prior video, you might want to do that first before watching this. It might make more sense if you haven't seen that last video to start with that. Okay, let's dive in. First is a summary of the results, and I want to explain this graphic here. I started this BodySig test on January 6th, and I wanted to look at things with a 5-day average. So what I did is I went back on the last 3 years and took my weight average for the first 5 days of the year, January 1st through January 5th of 2018, 2019, and 2020. And then I'm comparing it at the bottom to the results as of today. So this is just to give some perspective looking back at where things have been. So you can see, we'll just talk about weight right now. 2018, first 5 days of the year, I was at 174. 2019, I dropped down to 168. And actually somewhere, towards like May of 2019, I ended up down around 165. But then you can see by 2020, it was back up to 170. And that was kind of the trend I was talking about, that things were moving up at the end of 2020. So that's where this test started on January 6th. My 5-day moving average of my weight was at 170. And the body fat percent at that point was 19.4. Today, the 5-day average where I'm at is 167.4. So on this test, I've lost 2.6 pounds on the 5-day average. The body fat is 19.1. It was 19.4. So it did tick down. it seems like not much, but actually it's fairly significant when you look at how much it's. I mean, I've gone up like 2 percentage points since 2018, which I never fully understand. And I'll show more on body fat later, but it looks like a small amount, but I think it represents a positive direction, a positive change. But so anyway, that's it. That's the overall results in a nutshell. Now remember, this wasn't like let's find the greatest quick weight loss solution. This was yes, weight loss was in the scope, but it was primarily targeted for me, or somebody like me with just a little weight to lose. Not less than 10 pounds for sure, and or somebody maybe on a plateau that might have stalled or needed to reverse direction. And so with that said, I think this this result does show that those objectives were somewhat maintained. So let's go to the next graph. And this is just expanding. This is the 5-day moving average from day 1 of the test on January 6th. And I just plotted that every day for the 42 days. So this just gives you a graphic representation of what happened. I've also put, you see the F in red. Those are fasting days. Those are the days I fasted. And I just want to point out that in the last video I said I fasted 1 day per week. It averages 1 day per week. It's 6 weeks, I fasted 6 days, but I did 2 days in the first week, 0 days in the second week, and then 1 day per week after that. So there's a little variation in that pattern, but so that's why there's 2 Fs on alternate days. The first week I fasted on Tuesday and Thursday, and then I didn't fast again until the week after. So anyway, you can see a lot of there was kind of a quick reaction in the first 4 weeks. It went down quite a bit, fairly rapidly. There was almost an immediate change after that first week. The last 2 weeks have been, sort of in a holding pattern without too much change. I'm in a little cycling up and down within a range. So what that means, I don't know. But I mean, it's only 42 days, so we can't draw too many conclusions from all this. But okay, let's move on now. This graph is, you recall this from the last video. This was what I put up. This is my weight for 2019 and how I showed the effect of the Italy trip and the 5-day fast and the trend line late in the year. So this was the reasoning why I wanted to do this intervention, to kind of reverse that trend. So what I'm going to show you now is the same 2019 daily weight. By the way, this isn't smooth data. This isn't a 5-day average. These are actual daily data points. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to tack on to the end of this the BodySig test, and that will be in red. And so, okay, this is what we're looking at here. This is the same graph for 2019, but now I put in the BodySig in red. So you can see I didn't draw trend lines in there, but you can definitely see that the trend has been broken. The trend is for this BodySig has been down. Where it's going to go next, I don't know. Is it going to keep going down? Is it going to level out? I don't know. There's a lot we don't know about this. We only know, again, after all these are preliminary results. But this is why I say I do feel like this intervention has broken up the pattern and is showing me something different now, a different characteristic than I had for the last 6-7 months. So I think this is an interesting one. You can see it from this zoomed out perspective of the whole year, and then what the BodySig has done on the end of it. Okay, the next data I want to show you is probably the one that gets me the most excited. Now, when I started this, remember my idea was to eat instinctively, to not, I wanted to eat a lot each meal and then add some fasting. Remember, that was the objective. To be unencumbered by weighing and measuring, and to just eat until I knew I was very full, and then throw in some fasting days. My concern going in was that hopefully I didn't want to cut calories. Okay, I wanted to at least match the same calories that I would have if I've just eaten my normal meals every day. Or more. I would have loved to have eaten more, but I didn't know if that was possible with those 6 fasting days. And so I purposely did not track anything because I didn't want to have any numbers in my head, because once you start seeing numbers, then you're influenced and you start thinking that becomes part of the equation, and it's not instinctive eating anymore. So, but after like the 4 weeks, and I saw, well, my weight's coming down. How am I gonna quantify this, or how am I gonna share the results? Because I don't know what I've been eating. So I started weighing my food and recording it on a piece of paper. Just day by day, I'd put down so many grams of this and so many grams of that, and not looking for any target, not trying to hit any objective, just writing it down. And figuring that later on, before I prepare the results to present, then I will put it all in chronometer and see where the macros are. And that was kind of a big reveal for me, and this is the big reveal for you too. So let me explain this. I crunched those numbers, and I'm displaying them here on this page now. So the upper part of it is, I'm calling it the BodySig meal. Now this is, and then below that I'm comparing it to my 2019 average meal. What I did is I went in chronometer. I've tracked a lot of days in 2019. I averaged all those days. I ran a report and got an average. My average was 2543 calories, 205 protein, 10 carbs, and 182 grams of fat. That was my average meal based on the fatty cuts of meat, and just, whatever I was doing at the time during 2019. Now the BodySig meal, this represents each time I sat down to eat, this is what I was eating during this test. And it was 3,062 calories, 287 grams of protein, again 9 carbs. I'm not focused on carbs on this, and 204 grams of fat. So this is a meal to meal comparison. And this is exactly what I wanted. See, I was eating 20% more calories. If you look down to the bottom, 519 more calories, so it's 20% increase over my normal meal, and 40% increase in protein, 82 grams extra protein compared to my normal meal. Carbs, again, we don't really care. Fat was up 12%. Now fat, some of that is just because I was eating more protein. And some of that is because during this BodySig test, for a while I was going kind of crazy with butter. I was eating as much as 3/4 of a stick of butter with my meal. That's between, some of it I'm cooking in it, and some of it I'm eating with pork rinds, and some of it I'm putting it on meat. And I was just going nuts with butter. For a while, I realized at one point I need to dial that back a little bit. But anyway, so that, I'm happy about that, because what that represents to me is that when I sit down to eat, I'm really getting quite full. I mean, in comparison to my normal meal. 20% more calories, 40% more protein. So this is really, when I'm eating, I'm filling up more, and that was my objective. Okay, now, with that said, down below, I'm comparing it. I adjusted the BodySig numbers. And why did I adjust it? Because I want to know now, did I eat more calories this way or less calories? But since I fasted 6 days, I have to account for that. So I took the above numbers, the BodySig meal, 3,062 calories. I eat that 36 days. So I multiply that by 36, and then I divide by the total number of days, which is 42, to get a daily representation of how much I would have eaten if I'd eaten that same number of calories equally on every single day. And I hope that makes sense. So now you see the BodySig number comes down, everything comes down, 2625 calories per day, 246 grams of protein, 7 grams of carb, and 175 fat. So this is overall during that time frame how much I took in compared to my 2019 average. And this is the part I'm really happy with. So overall, I ate 3% more calories by, and even including the fasting, I ate more calories, 82 calories per day extra, 3%, even with the fasting. Now, according to calorie theory, psychotheory as I call it, that exactly pretty much equates to, I should have gained over 42 days with a caloric surplus of 82 calories. I should have gained 1 pound. Instead, I lost 2.6 pounds. So there's your calorie theory in a nutshell. So I ate more calories, and look at the protein. I'm happy with this. I ate 20% more protein during this time frame than I would have in my normal eating. So that is great. And the fat, you see, I was down on the fat. I was minus 4% than what I would have had if I'd eaten my regular meal. And that 20% protein minus 4 fat, that is the effect of the emphasis on lean versus the fatty cut. That's where it shows up right there. I did get quite a bit more protein, but actually the fat was a little bit lower. So anyway, I'm just real happy with this, because that's exactly what I wanted to see. And I didn't know it would come out that way. The last thing I wanted to see was that I was in a caloric deficit for the whole period. That is not my objective at all. I knew I was eating more per day. I mean, I could just tell I was, really eating a lot every time I ate, but I didn't know the effect of those 6 fasting days overall, if that would have, brought the average down, but it didn't. So I hope that's clear, and if not, ask me questions about it, and I can explain further. So yeah, just a brief summary. The BodySig did make a difference. It broke up the pattern from 2019. Most of the change happened in the first 4 weeks. The last 2 have been more or less just steady. I'm happy with the amount. Weighed, what is it, 2.6 pounds, I think. Uh, that's fine. I mean, where it goes next, I don't know, but that was good considering that I ate more. You know, and again, I'm just stressing this wasn't a quick weight loss scheme. This is a different intent. I think you get that. Questions though going forward are, since I changed three things, what was it that caused this change? What was it that caused the weight loss? Which factor was more important? And of course, the big question: what's going to happen next? So this is the part where I'm gonna share some commentary now, some observations, and some of this. I hope it doesn't sound too much like a stream of consciousness, but I just wanted to say it and throw it out there. These are the things that are circulating in my mind now. Nothing conclusive, but this. Let me just start by saying this test has kind of caused me to rethink some things, and that's why I want to say this. When you're doing OMAD, I think it's important not to undereat. And I always tell people who mention that they struggle with OMAD is to make sure not to undereat. Most people doing it are trying to lose weight, and so they got that mentality, and I know how it's burned in our brains to not overeat. But you only got one shot with OMAD. It's a one-shot thing. You've got to get your nutrition in that one meal, and you've got to satisfy your body. You've got to give it clear signals that everything is fine, that there's enough food. You got to give it the nutrition and the energy, everything it needs in that one shot. If you come up short, your body's gonna possibly take that as a signal. And my feeling is that, and I've thought this for some time, and it's kind of the reason I wanted to do this test with eating a lot at the meal, is that I don't know if it's just for me or it's a general thing, but I think it's better to send a strong positive signal to our bodies that we are full. And I mean not a mindful eating approach where I think I've had enough, or wait a little time or drink a lot of water and then I feel full now. No, I mean to the point where you feel stuffed, mildly uncomfortable. It's like the Thanksgiving dinner approach. Not quite that bad. I somewhere approaching it. I want to feel like some pressure, some actual physical pressure in my stomach that's like, oh, that's enough, And I haven't always done that. And I've been kind of in this mindful eating mindset, watching the chronometer. And in my weight loss journey, I was trying not to overeat. But that's okay when you got all those fat reserves. It's all right. But there comes a point when you do got to eat. And so that's what the purpose of this test was. I wanted to eat more, but eat less frequency. I was eating once per day, but I wanted to go the extra mile and eat less often, but to eat more. And I was just hoping I could pull it off and not eat less, and it looks like I did, so I'm really happy with that. Here's my way I think about this in terms of the whole body signaling. I think it sends a strong signal when you're uncomfortably full. And granted, you don't want to get uncomfortably full on junk food. That's not the kind of signal you want to send. I feel comfortable doing it with a protein-based diet that I can get uncomfortably full. I think it sends an unmistakable signal. There's the hormones. What's the hormones? Leptin and ghrelin. Leptin, I think, is a signaler that originates in the fat cells, like that. Hey, we have enough. We don't need any more. Stop eating, type of thing. I don't know if it's a personal thing, or whether it applies to other people, but I think maybe my signaling is a little bit weak, and I need to give my body a strong signal, like a hit over the head, like, that's enough, because I think the danger is with slightly undereating, let's say you're only getting 10 to 15% of what you need, because you're mindfully eating, you're trying to lose weight and watch your figure and whatnot. Here's the problem. I think we're sending a signal to our body that is something like this. Well, we're not getting quite the nutrition that we need, and it looks like food is becoming more scarce. There's going to be lean times ahead. We better start preparing for winter. Winter is coming, it looks like. So we're going to need to start storing some fat, because fat is what's going to save us when winter arrives and there's no food. We're going to live on our fat, and that's exactly what our body does when, like, if you go into a fast, there's no problem. Our body just shuts down a lot and just starts living on the fat. But what I think there's like a point where we're heading in that direction of no food, and we send a signal to our body to start preparing for winter. So this is my working theory now is I want to send the signal, hey, everything's fine. Food is abundant. We got plenty more of this. Winter's not coming. Just relax. There's no need to store fat for the tough times ahead. So taking this further and thinking about what happened to me after Italy, post-Italy changes that I've discussed, I have a new theory now about what happened there. And so think about this. It's kind of like a cascade of events. I go to Italy. I change my diet up. I partake in all different kinds of foods, and inadvertently, cause a disruption. Okay, the trip causes a disruption to my circadian rhythm. As someone suggested to me, the microbiome can change quite quickly. And I would definitely agree my microbiome probably changed. If it can change quickly, it did change, because I had 5 sustained days of all these different kinds of foods and sugars and carbs, and it was a total different world. I didn't feel anything at the time. I didn't feel bad. Everything. I didn't have indigestion or anything, but something was changing. And why the gut microbiome makes sense to me in that, because I know from what I've read, and I'm no expert on that. I really don't know what it does. My attitude is that it's going to have to, my gut's going to have to live on the food I give it. I don't worry about it. I let it manage itself. But I know that it's a major part of the signaling system, and it's like people talk like it's a part of the brain. It sends signals as far as if it's hungry for certain things. It sends signals to the brain. And so it is in the signaling loop. So I can perfectly understand why, if my microbiome changed in my gut during the trip to Italy, why my brain might start giving different signals as far as the fat storage. So those changes take place. I come back home. I don't know any of this is going on, but I start training for my marathon. Again, I continue training for my marathon. And that's my long running with in the higher stress levels, higher heartbeat levels. So right away there's stress, and then stress on top of stress because I'm starting to be stressed that I can't run long anymore. I can't go past 2 hours. It breaks down every time. I just can't do it. Another thing I thought of is that maybe my fat burning metabolism pathways have been somewhat disrupted in part of this process, whether it's the gut or the circadian rhythm or just different. I'm not sure what to say, but maybe that is part of it. I was somewhat compromised in my ability. See, because I don't take any, when I run long, I don't take any energy with me. I just I drink a half a glass of water, and then I go and I run and run and run until I can't run anymore. So there's no, I run until I'm out of energy. So I had a diminished ability to do that when I came back. So you can see these things are kind of compounding. Now there's more stress. And so there's extra stress and these other conditions. The body's interpreting this, as something's gone wrong, and maybe it's trying to be more protective and store fat. Because, as I notice, and on top of that, to compound this, the body's storing some fat. I start noticing on the scale after a while, I'm like, gee, I seem to be gaining weight. I don't like that. I need to do something about that. I'm going to do some mindful eating. I'm eating too much. That was my conclusion. I'm eating too much. And so I start reducing. I start logging, tracking, weighing, and making sure I don't go too high on the calorie. Better stick. Oh yeah, no, I better not have anything else because I'm, too many calories. I had that mindset. I was overeating. And at that point, I was eating the fatty cuts of meat. And I think the fattier cuts of meat have a tendency to give you a slight early signal for fullness. I mean, the fattier meats, you get full on quicker, at least in my case. When there's a lot of fat, you kind of get satiated quicker. So looking at this cascade from this perspective, I think maybe my mistake was doing this mindful eating. I needed to eat more, not less. I needed to eliminate the stress. If I had just done those two things, ate more and gave up the running, the situation would have taken care of itself. But this is kind of how I'm looking at this post-Italy change now. I said before I didn't understand it at all. To me, all of this kind of makes some sense. It sounds somewhat rational to me. I don't know. It's my working theory. I have some thoughts on carnivore, OMAD, fat that I want to share. This has just kind of come to me recently, some observations. And again, I don't know if this is true or not, just some generalities I'm going to throw on the table for discussion. It seems to me that, there are carnivores who eat 2 and 3 times a day. And then there are us carnivadians who eat once a day. And I don't understand how. One thing I don't understand, I'll just say here up front, I don't know how you can fill up 2 or 3 times a day. Because the carnivores, the operational strategy is to eat until you're full. Well, I can't do that 3 times a day. I'd be literally, I don't know. So anyway, but the carnivores who do, for whatever reason, eat 2 or 3 times a day, they're probably better served by having a more fat-centric diet, because it does, fat's going to shut off the desire to eat quicker than lean. So I think probably the people that eat fat are maybe the people that eat more per day. I'm just speculating. Whereby the people like me doing 1 meal a day probably better off prioritizing protein. in order to not prematurely get full and to get your full nutrition and full complement of protein. Because what I'm getting at, it seems like there's no really amount of protein that's too much. That's what it seems to me. I know there's all kinds of cautionary information about there, by keep it in a certain zone. What is it, 1.2 grams per lean kilogram? I don't even know the figure. I'm like way above it. And it has something to do with not, I don't know what the danger is. I've asked, and it's something to do with your kidneys, but cancer. Now, I don't believe any of that. I don't really think there's a problem. I haven't sensed it at all in just eating as much protein as you can. So certainly one meal a day, going leaner, it might help you. It might help a lot. In that, if you're eating one meal a day and do like I did, and you're eating a chuck roast or the ribeyes, which it tastes fantastic, but you might not be able to eat as much. Also, just a general observation I have in the carnivore community, it seems like the younger people gravitate more towards the fatty meats and the organ meats, and they're all into that. I think it probably makes sense. They're probably eating more than once a day. They have higher metabolisms. I think it probably works for a younger person. Probably, but for older people, and I'll put myself in that category, I definitely think we need to prioritize protein by any way. And so I would probably say it's better to go with a lower fat approach for older folks, because we don't metabolize the protein as efficiently as we used to when we were younger. Our metabolisms are slower in general. And so to get that protein, which is the foundation for our muscles and our bones, we need that protein. So I think for aging carnivores, I would eat as much as you can, but eat lean and make sure you can eat enough protein. Again, these are just thoughts in my mind right now. I don't, not anything hard and fast. This is just a stream of consciousness now. I wanted to pass on something. I don't know where I saw it, and I don't have a link for it. I'm sorry, but there's a study I saw that I think it was a review of some big. It had multi-thousand people in it. I think it was in Europe. They were looking at macros, and they were looking at for certain things, and they didn't find a lot of correlation in the study. Although they did find one inverse correlation, and the one inverse correlation they found was there was an inverse correlation between the amount of protein in the diet and waist measurement. The more protein in the diet, the smaller the waist, and vice versa. The lower the protein in the diet, the larger waist. That makes sense to me. If lower protein in the diet, it means you got a lot more junk in it, the waist is going to expand. Higher protein, less junk, waist goes down. It makes perfect sense. Oh, by the way, I mentioned waist. I didn't have that in the results, but I did notice on my waist, I did mention that I have sometimes trouble realizing if there was a change or not. I do believe I've seen at least like a 1/4 inch reduction in my waist on this BodySig test in 42 days. I do notice on the tape, and the more intuitive trouser test, my trousers are fitting well. So yeah, I think there's been a reduction in my waist just in the 42 days. Another thing I run into that I'll just mention, I saw this recently, and I'd known this in the past, but I forgot about it. There's something called the thermic effect of food, and it basically means the amount of calories you have to burn to metabolize food. Protein is the highest. It's like it's around 20 to 30% of the calories you ingest in protein are required just to metabolize it. So it's actually, that's beneficial for weight loss. Or it keeps your metabolism high because it's required to process the protein, to digest it. Personally, I'm feeling really good on this test right now. The only thing I'm not thrilled with are the fasting days. I mean, they're not that hard, but it's kind of a downer in the middle. I've been fasting on Wednesdays. It's just a little bit like a downer. It's kind of disappointing to not be able to eat that day. But once I get through that night and into the next day, I start to pick up. I start to anticipate the meal, and I start to feel good, and I start to feel light. And so there's like plus and minuses to it. It's like taking medicine. It tastes bad, but there's something good to follow. It's sort of like the fasting day. It's like taking your medicine. There is a benefit to it, but that was the only part of it that maybe I don't care for. I have to study that a bit more. I did mention my waist size seems to be going down. The other thing I will mention, and I will say this, the low stress, the low heart rate training, combined with the eating a lot of protein, a lot of lean protein, man, and I've been doing pretty much, I think I only missed in this 42 days. I think I did exercise on 41 days. I think I only missed one day because of travel. I've tried, I did that for a reason. I tried to be consistent, to have every day the same, but also because it feels good. There's no like lingering fatigue. I feel fresh every single day. Whereas before, when I was running, at the higher intensities, I would tend to most often have some fatigue in my legs. Like some mild fatigue. They were never like full strength unless I had rested a few days. But now, man, I got full strength legs all the time. And I have to add that I think it, I definitely feel like there's some additional muscle going on in my thighs. I mean, they seem to be popping out. And even in my arms. I think this protein is starting to show up. Now, this isn't something I measure inches on thighs or arms or anything, but it certainly feels like it's the protein is making a difference. So I feel good from that aspect. I wanted to show you one more graph, cycling back to body fat for a second. I didn't present this before, but this is ever since I've been recording body fat, this is the whole history of it. And I had a lot of thoughts about, what's causing it to go up and down. It cycles up and down. I can't find a real seasonal aspect to it. And this method of body fat with the it's called bioimpedance. It's not, for monitoring one person over a long period of time, and I do it every day at the same time of day, so there's some consistency there. It's okay for tracking long-term changes, but for any one given day, you can't really, it could be way off in terms of your true body fat percentage. Like it's not that kind of an accurate tool, but for trends, I guess it's acceptable. That's what I read on it. So anyway, here's all the data. And one interesting thing, what I wanted to point this out is it's kind of reverse course a few times. And oddly enough, it's in two occasions, it reversed course almost precisely exactly upon a trip that I made. And you see I marked them. There's a trip to Miami in 2018, where kind of the same thing, 3 days away from home, different foods, eating in restaurants. I splurged a little bit. And lo and behold, the body fat reversed direction and started going up. The weight didn't, though, at that point. That's the thing I want to point out. It doesn't necessarily correlate to weight. Then last year, I did a trip to Low Carb Denver and a carnivore conference. And I drew that line there. It's a little bit off. It actually coincides right with that inflection point at the bottom. It should be a little bit to the right. That trip caused a change. Now, again, on that trip, though, I didn't eat 2 meals a day. I didn't really splurge. There wasn't a huge time zone difference. Why would that have any bearing on it? I don't know, but it's something I can't figure out. And then I also marked in where my trip to Italy occurred. And as you can see, there wasn't anything remarkable happening after the trip to Italy. It just was kind of continuing, kind of flat, or maybe just slightly higher, but there was no big inflection point. Whereas on the weight graph, on the original weight graph that I showed you already, you could see kind of a before and after Italy effect on weight. So the odd thing is it doesn't seem to correlate with weight, and it goes up and down, and I frankly don't know why. And the reason I wanted to show this also, on the right side there in green, I'm showing when I started the low heart rate training. Because what I see there, it looks like it's trending down now since I started that. It maybe was already trending down, and it seems to go up and down. It has a mind of its own, and I'm not sure why. But the low heart rate training is, anyway, it's not hurting anything, and it seems to, in terms of body fat, it might be helping. So what do I do now? Going forward, what do I do with this test? It's up in the air, and I would say if you ask me, right now I have a plan, but if you ask me later in the day, the plan may have changed. If you ask me tomorrow, it may change again. But here's the way I'm leaning. First of all, there's nothing I really dislike about having this as part of my life. I mean, the low heart rate, that's great. That's going to stay. I'm not going to change that. So that's one aspect that's not going to change. The lean meat, I don't mind that either. I don't know how important I don't know how important it is. I mean, I think prioritizing protein is important. If I can do it, how I do it, what mixture of lean to fat, if that makes a huge difference, I don't know. That's something I might want to look into. So I'm going to maintain most of this. The one variable for me is the fasting days. If that was the factor that changed everything or not. So here's what I'm thinking. Remember in the beginning I said a lot of the change happened in the first 4 weeks, and I did 2 fasting days in the first week, skipped a week, and then I did once per day for the remainder. I kind of wish now I hadn't mixed it up like that, because now I have to know if the reason that a lot of change happened in the beginning was because of the double fasting day. You know, I fasted like Tuesday and Thursday of that first week. So it was fast, eat, fast. And the next week I took off of fasting. So I just have to know if that was the key or not. So what I'm going to do is this coming week, I'm going to eat, kind of reset. I'm just going to keep eating the same way with the lean and filling up. And then the following week, I'm going to repeat the first 3 weeks of this test exactly the way I did before, meaning the first week I'm going to fast 2 days, then take off of fasting, and then fast the third week. And I'm going to see if I get the same response as I did the first time, because I've got to know that. And then after that, it depends on the result, if the fasting is key or not. So I might toggle that off and on a little bit, with the fasting, without the fasting, and then take what works best. So I'm going to maintain the low heart rate. I'm going to toggle the fasting a little bit off and on to see which works better. Whichever works better, I'm going to lock that in. So I'll have the low heart rate plus whatever fasting strategy works. And then I'm going to go into the meat and toggle the lean versus fat to see if that, which works better. So this is gonna take some time, and I figure this is gonna be a project that I just work on. This will be something maybe I report back every couple of months with what I find, what works better. I'm just gonna stick with it and try to improve on it. Just so that maybe I can, over time, and I could be talking about this still in December of this year. I'd like to kind of have enough testing under my belt and enough data where I can say, yeah, this is optimal for me, and recommend it to someone else to try. So that's what I'm thinking right now. Like I said, I've been changing my mind daily, but that's how I think I'm going to approach this. It's going to take some time, and I'm going to keep working with it. I'm happy with everything that's going on, and I need some kind of project to keep me busy, and this will be fine. So this will be probably a subject of future videos as well. We'll just kind of continue to perfect it as we go along. I put a little comment at the end. What did I learn? I tell you what, when I travel, I'm going to be very cognizant of what I do, that there may be hidden things going on that I don't realize. Like when I was in Italy, I was having a blast. I was eating. I didn't have any trouble metabolizing the food or indigestion or discomfort. It was all wonderful. But other things were going on, maybe behind the scenes. So I think for travel, just for sake of consistency, I'm going to be a little more strict, a little more disciplined. Stick with OMAD for sure. Every time I've gone and incorporated any kind of 2 meals per day has been a not good outcome for me. And I do it because I think I need it to get in all my nutrition for the day, because I won't have enough meat, but it doesn't work. And I always gain weight afterwards. 7 or 9 pounds I gain when I eat twice a day. So when I travel, I'm going to stick with the OMAD and maybe be cognizant of not going off the rails into things like I did in Italy. But so that's the lesson. A lot of results, a lot of theories, and a lot of commentary. I hope this was somewhat easy to follow. I know I covered a lot of ground and had a lot of data and charts, but I don't know how long this video is, but it's probably going to be very long. So I'm going to wrap it up today. I'll be curious to see your comments on this. I'm sure I'll get some great comments and suggestions for what I should do next, and that'll be great. So yeah, I'm going to get on with my day now. It's going to take me a while to get this video edited and up. I promised to get it up today. This is Sunday morning, and I promised to publish it today. So I got some work to do. So thanks everyone. I hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.